me speaking super fast and sweaty. Well, is it that time, guys? Do you want to?
It's 5:30.
Okay. Are you guys live?
We are.
Okay. How many people do we have in our live stream right now?
6.
6. Well, welcome to the 6 of you. As you can see, most people decided to enjoy the weather, we believe. So, welcome to Growing Up in the Digital Age. Can you guys hear me okay? Is it coming through? Good. This is the elementary version, so we're going to be going through a few different things. If you do have the capacity from home, you can scan this QR code and it will actually give you a small questionnaire that is not mandatory. And it also has questions at the bottom, so if you want to ask any questions as you hear things throughout this, feel free to do that. If you can't scan the QR code, you can email, can I give you your email? sfrank, like you would spell the name, sfrank@zcs.k12.in.us. So she'll kind of monitor email, and if you have those questions, if you can't scan that QR code, I'm not sure if you'll be able to at this point, we'll go that route. So to introduce ourselves, I am Dan Layton. I am the Chief Technology Officer, Chief Innovation Officer for the district. And I have with me my team, the digital leadership or digital learning coaches. They're helping with this. You see our schools represented here, and one piece that I'll talk about a little bit later is the Trusted Learning Environment seal that you're seeing there. It's something we're really proud of that helps keep our students' information quite safe, and like I said, we'll touch base on that in just a little bit. So today we're going to talk a little bit about some unconventional wisdom. You can see here, this is something I've been using. I just changed the years. It always works. In 2002, we were told don't get in strangers' cars and don't meet people from the internet. And now, in 2022, we actively summon strangers from the internet and get in their car. So I always thought that was a really funny take on what we've experienced in just, really 20 years. When did Facebook come out? Like 2006? Something like that, 2004? Something like that. So we have come a tremendous way in just 20 years here, or less than 20 years, in terms of what's out there on the internet, what's capable, social media platforms. So we're going to touch on quite a few of those pieces today because we are really dealing with some unconventional wisdom. So things are getting harder, and hopefully you can see this from the view at home. We'll put this whole PowerPoint up online as well, so you'll have access to the links and everything else that's there. But for those at home, I'll just talk through a little bit. You're basically seeing a visual that talks about the majority of parents today say parenting is harder than it was 2 decades ago in 2002. One piece I do want to caution about some of these graphics that you'll see, I feel like they are slightly slanted one way or the other. There's a little bit of my bias fallacy in them. So I'll kind of work through some of those right now. But as you can see here, 66% of our parents think it is harder than it was 20 years ago to parent. And their biggest reason, technology in general, at 26%. So they think it's harder due to what they are seeing at home. Social media in general comes in at 21%, and then there's a few other pieces as well. So it is getting harder. Parents have recognized that. Hello, welcome guys. Haven't seen anywhere. Yeah.
Are we early?
Yeah. No, you were right on time. Yeah.
Sorry.
We just started. Just a small crowd for us today.
Okay.
So a couple other pieces of information. All of this information is from the Pew Research Institute, so you can look that up as well. A majority of our parents are concerned their child might ever be spending too much time on screens and have reached out to doctors for advice about this. So you can see here, and this is some of the stuff I talk about. You do surveys, when the person was filling this out, and they see somewhat, and then they correlate that to 71%. And I don't know if 71% is accurate because of the somewhat piece, but who are they going to for help? A lot of them are going to their doctors and medical professionals. Other people are seeking out other parents. Teachers are on there, parenting websites and blogs. So there's all kinds of access to information out there, just finding which one works for you and your family. This is the percentage of parents that are confident in their ability to know how much screen time is appropriate for their child. This is a really difficult piece. And really what I've noticed in my work in this area is it varies quite a bit. One, from the perspective of it really depends what they're actually looking at and doing online, and the other piece is determined by the child himself, person. So 84% you can see there, including the somewhat biased, think that they are confident in their ability to know how much. So that's a really solid piece as well. Also, according to Pew, majority of our parents say their children 11 or younger watch YouTube. And you can see 80% are there, which this is an interesting piece. And we're going to talk a little bit about some pieces with YouTube later on. But again, 80% of kids under the age of 11 are watching YouTube. This is a really interesting piece. 57% of those that were surveyed have 0 to 2-year-olds watching YouTube, which I find very interesting. And then you can see it starts to tack upwards as we get further along there. On this one, 80% of our parents of young children say their children watch videos on YouTube. That's what we just saw. But you can see at the bottom here, the net daily. So several times a day to once a day, 53% of our kids under the age of 11 are watching YouTube. So 97% of those parents whose child watches videos say that it keeps their child entertained. And 88% believe it helps them learn new things, while 75% of those that use the platform think that it helps expose their children to other parts of the world, other cultures, learn new things. And really, that's what you're going to hear, kind of the crux of the message today, is that these tools are just that. They're tools, and we can use them in a lot of different ways. And this is the kind of stuff we want to use YouTube for, in that fashion, to explore and to see other things that weren't readily available back when we were kids and we didn't have access to. So there are some amazing pieces to it, and we're going to talk through how we can utilize some of that later on. 46% of our parents say their child has encountered inappropriate videos on YouTube. So you can see here, 46% versus 53%. But again, when I was talking about my side biases, the way they phrase it, 46% of parents say they've encountered inappropriate, versus they just as easily could have said 53% have not seen anything inappropriate. So interesting focus there from the Pew Research Institute. So this is an interesting piece to me when we look at this. Most parents don't think it's acceptable for a child under the age of 12 to have their own smartphone. But you can see here, for those of you on the live stream, 3 to 4-year-olds, 1% have a smartphone. 5 to 8-year-olds, 4%. 9 to 11 has grown to 16%. And you can see most of the tablet, your iPad situation, you've got your 5 to 8-year-olds at 26% and 9 to 11-year-olds at 23%. So it's a really interesting piece that the smartphone continues to go down and down and down in the age at which they're getting it. So this national survey was an interesting piece as well. One of the things we're going to talk about is modeling for your kids. And of this national survey with their parents, 56% said they spend too much time on their smartphones, while 7 in 10 say they're at least sometimes distracted by their smartphone. So it's very interesting, and the kids are watching us when we're doing that. So it's one of those pieces as we talk about modeling, what we're going to do with that. But parents are continuing to show kids, this is what I do on my smartphone. And it's one piece to be cognizant of as we're talking through some of these pieces. Roughly 8 in 10 or more parents limit how long their child can use the screen or digitally ground their child here. So you can see this is a really great piece. I don't think this was happening. I don't have evidence to show that. I don't necessarily think this was happening in the last generation that grew up with the dawn of social media. But we're starting to see a lot more of these. And the tools really weren't there at that time for that. So you can see the time limited, 86% of parents are limiting their kids' time on social media, or on YouTube, I think, on this one. Just the internet in general. So take away the child's smartphone or internet privileges as punishment. We're seeing that more and more. It's getting really easy, those of you that have a circle at home, or one of those processes where you can just pause the internet and get the dishes put up or whatnot. So check websites or apps for their children, 75%. Again, these are great numbers, and this is what we like seeing is parents actively involved with their children and the internet. So, online, what are they actually using? This is interesting. 51% of our young children own their own smartphone, and they're getting that smartphone typically between the ages of 9 and 11. It's actually continuing to go down. So I think I have really struggled to find the exact, there's a lot of different surveys and research is showing right around 9, and then some are showing all the way up to 11, so we tried to phase it in there. But this is a very interesting piece. 12.6 is the average age that kids are signing up for social media. And if you're not familiar with social media agreements, guess what the age is that you're supposed to be for most social media sites? 13 for most of them. Some are 16, some are 18 as well. So a lot of kids are signing up, and it is not even necessarily, they're supposed to be doing that because cop out pieces, they're supposed to be 13 years old before they're supposed to sign up for account. Now with parental permission, some of those move around that rule and whatnot. But again, we're moving down to 12 and a half when our kids are getting social media accounts. So this is something, again, there are pieces of social media that are an interesting piece that can explore the world. I know with our digital coaches and Janet, and we have a media specialist back there, we've seen some really cool things with the use of social media. For instance, an author that they've been studying or looking into, they have invited that person to be, is everything okay, guys? No. They've invited that author in to come speak to their class, and they're able to do that. You want me to use the mic? Okay.
I don't think you need to, actually. I just set up the thing.
Okay.
Then you don't need to.
Oh, so you're good? Okay, gotcha. So that's a really interesting piece for us as well, with what you can do with it. But again, I was really surprised to find this piece of research at 12 and a half for when people get their social media accounts. I luckily was like 28 when I got it. Wasn't around. Why does all this matter? We are starting to see some research. Some of the groups I belong to have started to talk about how marketing is actually making its way into lower and lower ages. So you can see here, I like this little piece with Starbucks saying, hey, I want to reach all these people that like coffee. Facebook's like, here you go, here's 10 million people that like coffee. And you can start to see how that algorithm works. The internet is now an attention-based economy. They want your attention because that gets them revenue, that gets them more advertising marks. And so it is a piece where they're actively trying to keep you engaged in social media at all times. So that piece of being able to restrict how much time they can spend on it, those are definitely pieces we want to start considering. Now for the 2 in attendance, to put you on the spot. We were definitely planning on having more, so everybody can participate if you want. When it comes to our community and what we have seen pretty much throughout as we explore in the elementaries and things like that, most of our kids are not on social media at an early age in elementary. But what they are utilizing are games. And guess what games they're starting to do? They're adding chat features. They're adding other social media-like features. They're starting to add advertisements in some of these for the free version and things like that. So do you guys recognize any of these three? Among Us, you heard of this one, the game? Roblox, I'm sure you've heard of Minecraft, maybe Minecraft on that one. So these are 3 immensely popular games with our students. And they are playing those. But the good news is, at these younger age levels, these programs are really doing a nice job in the last few years of putting a lot of parental items in so that they can help with monitoring. Fortnite is another one. There's 200 million plus players in the worldwide. It is cross-platform. You can basically play it from almost any device at this point. And this is a piece, too, that parents, we want to warn you about. There's a lot of in-app purchasing. So if you've not restricted the credit card that is on that, you could be surprised quite a bit at the end of the month for all the pieces that the kids are purchasing. This is on Xbox, PlayStation, Switch. All of those allow for parental controls. So you can say, you're not talking to other people. The chat feature is turned off. You can play for a certain amount of time. So there are pieces in play now that are allowing parents to have more access to what their students or their kids are doing. Minecraft. Minecraft is one of those that, as we were talking about tools, it can be one of the most entertaining learning experiences you can think of. Kids can build whatever their imagination desires. I actually play this one with my 7-year-old quite a bit. He loves building in this, and some of the YouTube that we watch together is how to build certain things in Minecraft. So we're trying to teach him, you know what, YouTube does have, if you're going to get on YouTube, there should really be a reason to do that. Let's learn something from it. Let's explore with it. So we will watch a few pieces. We watched a guy on how to build a gigantic Mario statue because he's really into Mario. So we watched somebody on YouTube and how they built their Mario statue, and then we replicated that and had a blast doing it. But again, Common Sense Media, you will hear this a few times throughout this. There's a parent's guide to Minecraft. There are a lot of different parental controls in this as well. Minecraft has actually been purchased by Microsoft, and and they have done a lot too with it. So the kids can have accounts, schools can help monitor some of that as well when we're using it in the classroom setting. So again, a really neat tool, but again, if they're just going out there and doing some crazy stuff and meeting people that they necessarily need to meet, that's a piece we need to be considering as well. Oops, let me go back one. And then Roblox. I am not as familiar with this one, but it does have some features on here. There's chat features, there's party features for a lot of different people to come in. There's features where random people can come in. But again, they have really done a nice job in terms of filtering pieces. I just read an article recently that talked about this piece right here where they're now employing humans to monitor these chats because it got out of hand for a while. So they have, you can see there, they're replacing inappropriate language with hashtag symbols and things like that, so they're not showing up. And again, there are live humans looking after this at this point. There is parental controls as well. You have to set a parental pin so they can't go through and change everything back to how they want to do it. So it is very important to set that parental pin, because a lot of times, from what in the article I read, parents would go through, make every change they wanted, forget to set the parental pin, and then the kid would find out, hey, why is this all changed? And they'd go back through and change it to the system they wanted to be playing on. So again, that's an important piece too if your son or daughter is playing Roblox. This one is, excuse me, something I wanted to point out to you, and I know everybody at home probably can't see what I'm putting on here. But one of the things I've started to do with my 7th grader is I make her, when she wants a new app or she wants something new, we have a conversation about it. And part of my job is reading all of these privacy policies or the user agreements and things like that. So I read quite a few of them, and I find some hilarious things in these. Some companies take it very, very seriously, some do not. And this one caught my eye, so I don't know if this is still it. But when we were doing some work, I was reading through this one, and you can read right here, to help you stay safe, chats are anonymous, to help you stay safe, chats are anonymous unless you tell someone you are who you are, not suggested. And you can stop a chat at any time, period. Just out of nowhere, predators have been known to use Omegle, so please be careful. Like, this is in their user agreement. We are actively acknowledging that predators use this. So it's one of those pieces that I have started to do with her to say, like, okay, let's go through this. Now, we don't read it verbatim, word for word. We go through some of the pieces and say, does this seem like the platform you want to give information to? And so I'm trying to teach her those skill sets of, there are going to be so many of these pop up in the future. Which ones are the ones worth investing your private information into? So that's a piece to start thinking about. At the elementary level, it's just introducing that concept of, hey, these people have set up user agreements and rules. Let's make sure we're following those, and then starting there and moving forward with it from that point on. So, a lot of times when I talk to parents, that was the information piece there, we start to go through what parents can do, and a lot of times I hear, we just kind of hope that they're doing the right thing on it. And so I have this piece. Do you guys remember Pressure Luck by chance? I loved the show as a kid. This is one of my favorite shows. Stevie, do you remember Pressure Luck? Okay. if you don't remember it, it was a silly show, so you can see this. I think there's 18 box cutouts here. And the contestants here, this is Michael Larson. I'll talk about him in a second. 1984 is, I think, 83 or 84 when this happened. But you go and you slam down the button there, and it stops on something. And you either get $2,000 extra spins, or you get one of these little red figures. They're called whammies. Whammies and Sammies, is that what they were, I think? And if you get one of those, you lose all your money in your trigger. So, Michael Larson is the equivalent of like an ice cream man somewhere in Ohio, like Lebanon, Ohio. He watches the show, and he's just mesmerized. So he notices something as he's doing it. They follow, the light pattern follows identically every time. So he notices this. So he invests his money, he built his own at home. And he learns the system and knows exactly when to hit the button. And this is 1984, and he had the highest earnings ever, like $110,000 or $18,000. It went over 2 days before he actually decided to quit doing the game show. So the interesting story about Michael Larson is, I can't remember this guy's name or this lady's name, but they were all sitting in the green room beforehand, and they were all giving good lucks to each other. And he's like, oh no, it's not about that. He's like, there's no hope or there's nothing about me doing well in this. I'm going to dominate everybody. I'm sorry to have to compete against me. And they kind of thought, oh, this is silly. Like, this guy's definitely just trying to intimidate us or something like that. But he goes on to win $110,000 in this game. And I love the piece where he talks about, he actually speaks to this, that hope isn't a strategy. I built a machine at home. I knew exactly what I was doing. Now, the only bad thing about Michael Larson here is that he took that money and embezzled it into like a real estate scheme and went to jail. So, not the best story at the back end. And I always want to preface with that because somebody will always be like, didn't that guy go to jail for something? And yes, he did. But I do love his piece of hope is not a strategy. I'm not going to leave it up to hope and the pressing of the button. And that's a piece we start to talk about a lot with these internet pieces. Hope is not a strategy. Giving a kid access to the entire world and hoping they do the right thing is not going to end well 9 out of 10 times. So that is a piece through the Michael Larson story. So what do we do at Zionsville? I'll have some of my team help me here in a second. But the one piece I said I was going to talk about a little bit later is this trusted learning environment. We belong to a national consortium, it's called COSIN, the consortium of, school networking, sorry. And they have a system of, it's a badge that you can earn called the Trusted Learning Environment. I think there's only like 22 schools, districts throughout the nation that have achieved this badge and certification. And there's like 5 different areas of how you're keeping student information, staff information, completely safe, not giving it away. So we've changed a lot of different protocols. You and I know Stevie's new to our group, but Kyle and Carly, we had to change a lot. It made a lot of people unhappy because it was really easy to just be like, oh, I'm going to sign my class up for XYZ because it's a cool looking app, or I'm going to sign my class up here. That is why we're reading all of these user agreements and the privacy policies to make sure that anything Zionsville's doing with student information, if we give any part of that away, we want to know exactly what they're going to do with it and exactly what they are going to do if they have a breach on their end. So there's a lot of different pieces that go into play. But this is one of them. We definitely want to keep that student information safe. I attended a cybersecurity piece some years ago, and there was a guy from the FBI there, and he was talking about it, and he asked the entire group, he's like, what do you think your social security number's worth? Do you guys have a guess? Well, like, on the black web, or on the dark web. Pennies, like nickels, that's why they're trying to steal millions at a time, right? Guess how much a 5-year-old's social security number's worth? Like $50 to like $75, and this was years ago. Why? Because nobody checks it for the next 13 years until they turn 18. And when I heard that, I was just like, wow. And he talked about this example of this kid that applied for college loans that was like somehow owned a golf course in Phoenix that had gone bankrupt or something to that effect. Oh, use my, okay. I'm not as loud as I used to be, yeah. Sorry. You get that. So when I heard that, I was like, this is something we really have to. Is that better? Is that better? Can you hear that now? Okay. So with this piece and the FBI, we thought we really got to be more sophisticated with what we're doing with that technology or with that information. And that was the dawn of us applying. We failed the first time. We were not accepted. They said, no, you're not doing enough. We made tons of changes that next year, and then we did get the certificate shortly after that the next year. So I think we have to reapply every 2 years, and we are up in next year, 2023. So we'll be doing that. Oops. At this point, any of the digital coaches want to talk about some of the stuff we're doing at all? Anybody there? Or no? Yeah. Steve's going to come on up. So what are we doing? I'll let Stevie Frank, one of our digital coaches all across the district here, talk a little bit about that.
All right, I think I've got the next slide. So Kyle Bynfor is actually going to be talking to us a little bit about what common sense education looks like here at ZCS.
So for the last few years, we've had our whole district has gone to become Common Sense Media certified, which means we go through specific lessons that we teach each of the kids about digital citizenship, a lot of the things we've been talking about tonight. And so from grades K through 12, we're having those conversations with students, whether it be in the media center, when they're with the media specialist during the elementary time, our middle schools, our counselors, as well as our health teachers have specific lessons that they teach about cyberbullying and a lot of these other concepts as well. And we continue to do that throughout the school year. But at the elementary level, as a matter of fact, this fall we're going to be having an E-Day during parent-teacher conferences where that whole day students will be working on what we call digital leadership lessons through Canvas. So they're going to be learning about what are some of the things they do when they're online, what are some things that they do not want to be sharing with others, and so we continually are adding to those things throughout the school year, all the way from grades K through 12. And then Stevie, you want to share a little bit about some of the things happening at the middle school?
So I actually had my prior experience. I worked for 4 years, and I was actually at Zionsville West Middle School. And so a lot of things that we did as fifth grade teachers, it was great to have this role because I was like, I was boots on the ground. I knew what it looked like to have fifth graders come in, and it was their first one-to-one experience. So whenever we took this role on, they all have the same devices this year. And so to help roll that out, the digital team all went into all the different middle schools, and we made sure that we gave one message to every single fifth grader receiving a brand new laptop of what did that look like. So I kind of put some things that we highlighted there. We talked about really like what does it look like with digital citizenship. So if your teacher is teaching with you, I like to talk about their laptop being, this is like your textbook, right? So just as you wouldn't stare down at your textbook or ignore the teacher, you're going to do the same thing. We talk about going into listening mode with your laptop. So if somebody's speaking, you can bring your screen down to a 45-degree angle, and then that way you're being present in the moment. And so I always talk about that. Let's be present in the moment. And so that's a big part of what we always talk about. And as a fifth grade teacher, we did that all of the time. And that's all day, every day, right, within lessons. So we talked a lot about that. We also just talked about like just hands-on caring for your actual device. Like, here's how you hold your device. Don't throw a pencil in it and then slam it shut. That's gonna break your screen. So we talked just a lot about like the actual caring for this piece of technology. We also did a lot of like how-to on Canvas and on OneDrive because we understand, these are 10-year-olds coming in and they're like, I don't know how to get on anything. And we're like, absolutely. So let's kind of go through everything step by step and take a look at, okay, let's get everybody logged in on Canvas. What does this look like? Let's have everybody go onto the calendar. What does this look like? Here's how to send your teacher an email. And so we did go through all of those different steps as well. We also have a Zeke Squad, which is the Student Technology Leadership Program, and that's going to be available to all students as well. So these little guys are kind of like our, if you will, call boots on the ground, like in the different classrooms. And so if somebody has a technology question, somebody in the Zeke Squad can be like, hey, I can help out with how to print, or hey, I can help out with that. And so it's just super helpful. We also, I don't know, for lack of a better term, we also like to scare them a little bit into what they're looking at in the internet. So we talk about what it looks like for digital leadership. So we were like, this was literally a slide we used, and we were like, everything you type on your device is being monitored. So we see everything, and then we even put the caveat, like, even if you delete it, we have to back these things up in servers. So we were like, everything that you type, we see. So we were very explicit with that, and we made sure they completely understood, and we were there for the what if questions, well, what if I didn't type it and somebody else typed it? You let a teacher know right away, because we're gonna be talking with you. And they're like, okay. We also talked about like the spamming of messages, because sometimes technology with 10-year-olds can be interesting and entertaining, and so we were like, make sure that we're using it responsibly. And those are really the main things that we really hit in the middle school. And again, because fifth grade is their first one-to-one experience, we wanted to make sure that everybody heard one message throughout the entire district.
Kyle, did you touch on the Common Sense Media Certification?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was holding the door open. I'm going to talk a little bit more. I know one of the questions we saw there was on our filters. And we're going to talk a little bit about filtering at home and how we do it here. And the one piece I want to caution against is we definitely have the philosophy of the relationship with the kids and being around the adults in the school is our number one layer. There is no absolute when it comes to actual filters. There are so many ways around them, and even the companies that have some of these products out here, they find ways to subvert our firewalls and our filters and things like that. But I know Kyle did have a question on filters. We do have an educationally based, it's actually a leader in the educational realm. It's called Lightspeed. So they have put together filters for us that we use. What's that?
I think they were all wanting to know, as a parent, how to...
Oh, okay, yeah, I'm gonna get to that too. But from the ZCS perspective, we do have that filter in place. And what's really nice about using one of those nationwide pieces is every school district that they are in, they collect information about what's not appropriate and what can be on there and what shouldn't be on there. And then they continue to add that to their repertoire of things that need to be blocked and things like that. But again, I don't want to talk in the absolute that we can filter everything. It's an impossible task and there's lots of ways around it. So that's why it is one part of all the layering that we do through the school. That includes all of these pieces in digital leadership and the pieces that were described to you a second ago. So what can be done at home, I think is the question Kyle was talking about. Several things. This is a couple little bit more pieces of information, but these are two organizations you've probably heard of, maybe in the last few years, especially with COVID going in. The World Health Organization and the American Association of Pediatrics. And you can see they are not exactly lined up, but for the most part looking pretty good there. Nothing for kids under the age of 2. And I actually like the way that the American Association of Pediatrics said this, because who doesn't want to have their little kiddo talking to grandparents on their phone and being able to explore that as well. So they have carved that caveat out of co-watching high-quality programs or video chatting with a family member, something like that. Co-chatting, I guess, would be a better way to put that. And then 2 to 5 years old, limit to 1 hour high-quality programming. That's a piece that my wife and I have actually talked about. And one thing you're going to find throughout all of this when you start to do these pieces of parenting with your kiddos, it's a humbling experience from time to time when sometimes they know more than we do. Yeah?
And screen time just refers to any screen.
I'm going to talk about that in a moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So that's a very great point that you're bringing up. And that's right here. So the Oxford Internet Institute, part of Oxford University, I believe, yeah. They did a study of 20,000 different parents, and they continue to put out resources. And they don't have an exact correlation between limiting devices and a child's well-being. Now, having said that, they do recommend, they have some recommendations there. But you can see that second set of piece there. How parents set rules about digital screen time, if they're actively engaged in exploring the digital world together, are more important than the raw screen time. We're going to talk about digital nutrition here in a few steps, but one of the pieces we do is we compare it to the food intake that a child has. If they are strictly, and this my child, my 6-year-old friend, I already handled this, because he basically survives off goldfish. But they need to have a balanced diet. And this same thing goes for this digital instruction. Some of it can be entertaining, right? It's just, let's wind down or let's watch a show. Because let's face it, people get busy. That's going to be a part of life. We're not going to say that that's not something you can. But if they are doing something that's actively engaging them, they're building something, they're exploring something, they're visiting another culture across the world, those are not screen time pieces where you're going to say like, all right, I'm glad you were working really hard on that, super engaged and having fun and learning. You've had 60 minutes, that's good stuff. Those are not necessarily pieces. I think what they're referring to in some of those are the, for entertainment pieces of the screen time. You can see University of Michigan, how a child uses the device, not how much time, exactly, very well put there, is the strongest predictor of emotional and social problems connected with screen addiction. So they kind of talk about when you start to see that they've lost interest in other activities that they used to have, they don't want to participate in the things they used to with the family, that's when you start to question, maybe we need to revisit some of those pieces. So, again, we talked about this, rather than counting calories or screen time, think about what they're actually doing on there. This, Jocelyn Brewer, is somebody we follow quite a bit. She's been putting some things out for the last 5, 6, 7 years. So again, I like some of these lines, so for the folks at home, I'll read those out. It's not just about whether you consume any potential digital junk foods, but also your relationship to technology and the role it plays in your family life. Next quote. We know that using screen to soothe or pacify kids sets up some concerning patterns on relying on devices to calm or distract a child. How many of you have been at a restaurant where you look down, there's a whole family there, and all 3 kids and the 2 parents are all on devices, not having any sort of conversation? We've all witnessed it, right? And there have been times, I think we've all probably digitally pacified a kid, but it's not something that you want to continue to do, especially at that young age where they learn how to throw a fit. Here's an iPad. That's a piece actively suggesting we don't do. So again, we want to avoid using screens to placate tantrums, just like we want to avoid eating treats to calm down emotional stresses. Another PhD psychologist, this is the piece that I was referring to a little bit earlier with our filtration. You cannot monitor weight through parenting. Even if you set up the best, most intricate filter at your own home, there are ways around it. It will falter from time to time. There will be new products that come out that it won't register until later on when it knows about them. So again, she talks about monitoring, teaching kids to monitor themselves, setting up those time limits. And remember we were talking just previously about parents that, 60-some% of parents that say they're on their phone and distracted and during family time. So modeling, being a great model of that. And then you have access to know more about your children than any parent group in history through some of these pieces. So we need to take advantage of that opportunity as well. So we talked a little bit about monitoring through firewalls and things like that. We have seen, I think, we were having a little discussion the other day, all the different things we've seen students do to try to get around our filters. There's a lot of different ones. And some of them are very sophisticated. Use gift cards. This I think Apple has actually done a better job lately on this, but for the longest time you could restrict a child from using an application or not let them download it because you were the one in charge of the credit card that allowed kids to download information to their device, their iPad or their phone. Well, kids found out that they could find a used gift card, an Apple gift card. These like empty gift cards were being sold online, and you would get it, and then you could set up your own account that your parents didn't know about using the gift card. And then you could download all the free apps. You still wouldn't have money to buy the paid-for apps. I see some of that kind of So they were doing that. They were finding used gift cards, setting up their own accounts, and then having access to every free, because most social media is free, right? So they could get on social media, because social media gets its money through advertisements. You are the product. Proxies and VPNs, to keep it very brief, they find ways around going to the actual site by going to a proxy that our filters don't recognize or your filters may not recognize as something that they don't want to be going to. And then they use the proxy to go to the site they want to go to. I have thanks Netflix for the VPNs. And Netflix, when it first came out, I don't know if any of you are baseball fans, football fans, or something like that. They would block out some of the games that were local because they wanted people to go to the game. The MLB must have done this. So I've experienced this myself where I'm a Cubs fan. And you are too back there. I want to watch the game. Netflix would say, oh, it's going to be on ESPN. Oh, great, let's watch it. And sorry, your local market has been blocked out from this game, and you'd have to pay the extra money to do that. So this created it's not Netflix's fault, so I don't want to blame Netflix here, but it created this whole new industry of VPNs so that people would go to a VPN and then log into Netflix, and then Netflix couldn't geo-locate where they were at, so they wouldn't know that I was in Indianapolis, and it would let me watch the game. So there was a whole new industry that kind of came out because of Netflix's geolocation blackouts. Tor browsers, we've seen this a lot. I know Kyle, is there a question there, Kyle? Did I answer? Okay. The Tor browsers, we see a lot of this where they can have a specific USB that they can plug in, and it can either proxy or VPN across our filters. And they can do that at home too if you have some filters set up. They're not hard to find, so there are pieces there. So if you're like, hey, you know what digital storage are you using there for your USB stick? Because a lot of it's moved to the cloud now, so we don't see those as much. There's a chance they may be using that as a VPN around your filters. And then there's Google Translate. I think Google has cleaned this up a little bit, but I think there's still some ways around it. But for a while, you could go to Google Translate, and then it would allow you to, I think you'd have to figure out another language, and then you could use that to go to a different site, and then it would allow you to be there without, it would bypass filters. So very interesting pieces there. This is something you do want to have a conversation, not maybe at the elementary level, but as they get older, a lot of these are now set up, and they're predatory. They want your information. They want to know what you're doing. So they're like, hey, this is a free proxy. Get around filters. You do not want to go for a free VPN or a free proxy. So those are those are pieces you actively want to avoid. And those are conversations. It's a difficult conversation to have. That if you are going to do something unscrupulous, please do it in the right way. So it's one of those, but if at all you see that there's a proxy being used, there's a good chance that they are stealing information and things like that. It's a pretty ugly system that's developed for that. Family sharing hacks. All of these new, not new I guess, Apple has done an amazing job with family sharing plans. We talked a little bit about the old gift card method. But now with these, you can set up what kids can get access to. Every time my child wants to get something new, it comes to our phone and we have to approve or not approve it. And typically, it's a really solid system. So again, let me go to Bill Gurley here. As your elementary age student gets a little bit older, one of the things that we've talked a lot with kids about is that they have started to develop this piece with their phones. And it's not just a tool for them, it's almost an instrument. They emote with their devices at this point when they get to high school. They have a huge connection with friends and their friend circles. So it's one of those pieces that we have to be cautious of as well when we're talking through what social media, as they do get older and want to explore and have those resources available. And you're gonna fight that, right? As they get older, you're gonna be, all my friends have X, Y, Z, and that's how they communicate with each other. I can get to go to the gathering wherever they were at because I'm not allowed on X, Y, Z. So those are pieces you may want to start to think through of how you want to handle those, because it really is a way that your child wants to show some of their emotions in a moment. And he's got a great trick here too. And I've been saving this one for my 7th grader at some point, but she doesn't have social media just yet, but when she gets there, I'm going to ask this. But he always says this: ask kids what their friends are using. Because kids will instantly tell you what all their friends are doing, but they won't tell you if you say, what do you do? Big nothing. But if you ask them, they're going to openly talk about what their friends are doing online and things like that. And chances are there may be some correlations there. The best internet safety tool is you. This is a piece I've been talking about since my days in the classroom. Rules without relationships lead to rebellion. And these are pieces that we're going to start to talk about, those family media use plans. But when you're starting to develop these, one of the biggest things they talk about are less context rules and more content activity accountability. To say to your student that you're giving this massive information tool to say, don't do anything stupid. I mean, that is a context rule. They don't know what that means. But to say, this is how much time you get on this, and you're going to come, we'll talk about it in a second. This is how much time you get on this system. This is how much, these are the apps you can use until we see that we can move to the next one. So again, try to think down that path of the specifics. And then you want to include the whole family in the decision-making process. And this can be difficult. And if you have a teenager or a 12-year-old that's a future lawyer, this can get really entertaining when you're putting together your family media use plan. Other things you can do at home: set the limits, write that contract. We're going to have a few examples here in a second. But there needs to be more face-to-face conversation of family than online. What we're starting to see is families are now starting to, hey, I'll just text and I'll talk and I'll do this. Make sure that there's still way more face-to-face than anything else. Play and learn together. I do not enjoy Super Smash Brothers in any way, but I played a lot with my 7-year-old because he's really into it. And I want to have those shared experiences when he's online. When we're watching YouTube, we don't just let him watch YouTube and hope that nothing comes down the pipeline of the algorithm. We watch it together, and typically we have that conversation of, what are we watching today and why are we watching? And if you get down to that, why are we wanting to watch this? Then it's like, oh, I want to see how to do this in Minecraft. Oh, cool. We're learning how to do something, to create something, to build something. That's what we want to utilize the internet resources for. So do those pieces, and then be a good role model. At our house, we have these tech-free zones and the dinner table. There are absolutely no phones. They get plugged in over here at night. This is actually my house. We put one of those strips in so that all devices at night are plugged in here. They're not in bedrooms. I'm the only one that breaks that rule because I get a lot, during the winter, I help with like the snow pieces. I have to get that 4 o'clock call. So there are pieces with that our family puts those up, and we do that. And what I do is I put my phone on there and I put it in bed, and then I grab my phone back. So I don't know how good of a role model I am. And then again, as we were talking about earlier, don't use tech as a pacifier. It's really very easy to do. but it's one thing that once you go down that path, it's really hard to pull that back. So it's hard, and I've had my child flip out at a restaurant, and I wanted to just, here's my phone, just, watch some Daniel Tiger and wait for the food to come. But, you have to take those hard routes and maybe go for a walk around the block and then come back to the restaurant and have that conversation. But if you can, and now don't beat yourself up if that's something you have to work through and work on, but it's something you want to try to avoid early on with your elementary age kids. What can you do at home again? Talk about digital duality. This is a piece you can start super early with your kids. And this is what these three have done with that 5th grade group they were talking about. Our elementary EDA lessons are going to talk about this digital duality. You cannot decide to be somebody else online that you are not in person. And there's actually some interesting research out there about how kids are developing this massive potential for compartmentalization, because they will go be somebody else online, and then they will step and be this other kid in real life. And it actually has an effect on the brain and their ability to compartmentalize, like, I can kind of be 2 people. And that's not a really great system for the brain of a young person. So talk about that piece. You are the same person online as you are in real life. Start talking about privacy early on. How many of your kids know your cell phone password? You don't have to raise your hand, but teach them that that's my password. That's my phone. If I'm going to let you look at anything on it, I will put that in for you. Funny story. My daughter, when she was like 4 or 5, asked if she could see my phone because she didn't know my password. And I noticed she had taken the phone and cleaned it off really well before I punched in to do it. And then I saw her take it over to the lamp and figure out the 4, this was back when it was 4 numbers. And I was like, she knows the 4 numbers, she knows the order. But she was trying to figure out what my password was. So again, they don't know what our passwords are. It annoys them to pieces, but they don't need to know what your passwords are. Teach them early on to do that role modeling. This is my password. You are someday going to have a password. Do not share that password with anybody. We've had situations recently where kids have shared passwords, and then other students have started writing horrendous emails to other students and teachers. And you look, you're like, this came from student A, but student B actually wrote it. So that's another piece of teach them very early on that the password is something just for you. So again, talk about those pieces. Talk about, again, the example I gave with my 7th grader of why do we look at privacy policies? It is immensely boring. You guys have all read them over here. It's not fun to do, but it's a very important piece, especially as we continue to see that piece that we talked about earlier, that the internet is now an attention-based economy. So we want to know what they're taking from you. And then talking about pictures and what they post. We kind of use would you want grandma to see this rule at our house? And if you don't think this is appropriate for grandma to see, it's probably not appropriate for anybody else to see. But there are a lot of different ways to talk about that. But pictures are a piece that I think Steve was talking about. Once they're out there, they are out there for life. It's the digital tattoo. Or it's not the footprint, it's the tattoo, right? Very hard to remove. And this is a huge one. Have a plan for when they make a mistake. This probably won't happen as much at the elementary level because we have a little bit more access and restriction and we're not giving them the freedom that maybe at the middle school. But they're going to make a mistake. And the worst thing that can happen is when they make that mistake, we don't know what we're going to do about it at that point. So try to think about what mistake they're going to make, know how to talk to them about that mistake. So have that ready to go. As you do your family media use plan, that's one area that a lot of them miss or don't really highlight too well. So start to think about generalizing. This is what's going to happen if you don't follow the media use plan. And then, it's hard. It's our responsibility as parents, and I was talking about that humbling experience, to know, all right, you want an app. It's easy to just say, okay, yeah, this is there. But it takes that time, and I've talked with my 7th grader who sends me like 16 apps a day of what she wants, and I'll be like, I'm gonna get to that on my time, and I'll let you know when I'm ready for that. Because they try to pressure me like, oh, it's fine, all my friends have it. But take that time, it's not a ton to look at the privacy policy, to look at what else is available on the app, because a lot of them are tricky. How am I doing on time? I just want to make sure. We're going to have the next group coming in soon. So, family media use plans. Articulate those family goals. We're going to show you a few examples here in a second. But think TAP. It needs to be transparent. It needs to be accessible so they can reference it again. And it needs to be practical. You have to be able to utilize it. The student or your kids have to be able to utilize that. So don't make it so that it's so cumbersome that nobody actually follows any part of it. Keep it simple. promote that accountability, and this one, build it together. It's a really cool skill for your kids to have, to be able to arbitrate what they want versus your wants. And again, I've put this on here several times. Plan for when things go wrong. So a couple examples, thehealthychild.org has one. I think that's the one that is actually recommended by the Academy of Pediatrics. And then Common Sense, we are big fans of Common Sense here. They do outstanding work. And if you're not familiar with Common Sense, do yourself a favor and just head there. They have a catalog of every app you can think of. They have a catalog of every movie that's out there, pretty much every show. And they kind of talk about, here's what we think of it, here's what it has available, here's the language that's being used. It is an immense resource. Common Sense Media, yes?
Who is behind that?
They're an independent company, right? Is it government funded? I'm not 100%.
It's nonprofit, like, there are some big companies like Microsoft, Google, a lot of companies have contributed to this nonprofit to kind of.
Okay.
Make sure they're
Great.
putting the information out there, so. And then I've got a few more, I'm not gonna spend a ton of time on those, but there's all kinds of tools out there available for you. One of my favorites, and this is a new one that I want to touch on, with the YouTube piece. They're actually coming out with this parental personalization piece. So you can sign into YouTube through a Google account there, and then your child can have their account, and then you can start to determine what they can have access to, what videos they have access to, or pieces that meet a certain threshold will send you that piece of, like, your child wants to watch this video, is that cool with you? And so it's in beta right now, so it's not fully formed yet, it's still being developed, but we're really excited, and actually our filter, Lightspeed, that we use here at school, has talked about how, as this gets developed, they're going to try to work some of that into the filter piece. So again, we're at a piece where a lot of these companies understand that parents really want this done, and they're starting to build those pieces. We're just waiting for them to finish doing it. So again, a really cool tool, but there is also YouTube Kids, so that filters way more things than just the regular full diesel YouTube, I guess. As you start to explore phones, this is a new one that has come out recently. It's called Gab, and it basically doesn't allow for application downloads. You get it looks like a smartphone, and you get some pieces of, like, you can take pictures and have the videos and edit videos and things like that, but it really doesn't allow for any social media. So it is a phone in every aspect, but it is not linked to social media, and they can't really access it through that. So again, these are pieces, and you can see here, GPS tracking. So it does allow for that piece that gives you a little bit of peace of mind. Yeah?
I know this is dumb, I don't care. Can they make calls and text messages on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it fully functions as, it's basically a smart-looking phone that's a flip phone.
Okay.
And it's an interesting piece that they've started to develop, because this is something that parents have actively said, we want
Yeah.
to be able to, as our kid gets older, we'll introduce them, and when we've had that conversation, they've shown they're responsible enough for social media, then we'll get them the iPhone or whatever it is. I don't know a ton about which of the actual carriers it works with, but I'm under the impression that it works with most of the major carriers. So it is something to look at. There is a guy that we follow called Protect Young Eyes. So I think he actually has a code where you can get a discount on it too, if that's something you're looking into. Yes?
Do you know if Spotify or Apple Music is downloadable now?
I don't believe so, because I don't think it really has internet connection. So I think it does actually have a little bit so that they can do the GPS piece, but it doesn't really allow you to do anything. Zero. As far as I understand. Yeah?
Is that similar to the Gizmo?
Yeah, there's several other ones out there that are, it's the phone only, text, call, I can take pictures, but that's the extent of it. This is a product I use in my own house. It's called Circle. It's actually from Disney. It's a really great tool, and you can see some of these. Anybody else use Circle at home? A Geifen's another one, a Koala is another one. But it's a little piece that you actually plug into your router at home. And that's the piece that we always recommend from the school so it doesn't interfere with our filters. Because two filters fighting each other really leads to nobody getting anything done. But this is actually a filter on your own home network. So you plug it in the back of your wireless router, and then you download an app, and I can pause the internet. It has a bedtime for our kids. It has uses, so I can say, Casey, you get 45 minutes of YouTube a day. You get this much of whatever it is. So you can set all of those pieces. And it's my wife's favorite tool, because she will get on there when they haven't done some of the things that they're obligated to do for us, and pause the internet, and then you would be surprised how quickly things get done. But a really great tool also from the perspective of seeing their search history and seeing what they've been going to and utilizing some of those pieces. Another one is called Bark. This one is a fan favorite as well. I've heard a lot of families that use this and are really happy with it. So it covers a little bit more of the social media pieces so that you can investigate what they're actually doing on some of the social media, more so than the circles. So I think this might be something we start to look into as we enter the social media phase of parenting at my own house. Again, this is just one example. There are so many different systems. You can see Net Sanity, iMore, Family Time. There are a lot of these software packages that you can also buy and put on there. I would recommend, researching what would be best for your family, but there's a lot of different ones out there that you can utilize with phone controls. Again, the Common Sense Media will put all this online, and I think that kind of brings us to the end there. I guess while we have some more people coming in, Kyle, any other questions that came up or anything from the crowd here?
Yes, they wanted to know how to, as far as Zionsville resources that they use, Canvas, PowerSchool, as a parent, if I need to find out more how to use those, what's the best way to do that?
So
Who can help them?
yeah, you can always ring our email. You can ring our phones or email us. We actually have a really great website as well that we have put together for families that talks about each one of the tools that we use here at the school. Kyle, help me with the
zcsfamilies.weebly.com.
zcsfamilies.weebly.com.
I want to get out of your
Yeah, go for it, yeah. So it actually has, write-ups from us. It has some videos on how to use certain things. So if you are struggling with PowerSchool or Canvas and how to utilize it, there are tutorials that these three have put together that kind of walk you through those. So any resource that you have that we utilize as a district, we've tried to put it on there to give you a guide on how to use that. So I'll Kyle bring that up. Oh, did you put it on there? Oh, there you go. Great. Can you click on it for me? I'll just show them. And again, I'll post this in a really evident spot online, so you'll have all these.
We came in a little late. What's your role or title here?
I am the Chief Technology Officer for the district, so I help out with our technology all across the district, from implementation to all of the infrastructure.
Is there a technology person in each building, or you all roam around? Or?
So we have a technician at the high school, both middle schools, and then there are 3 or 4 that rotate around 6 of the elementary. So we don't have one all the time in every elementary, but we don't also have one-on-one programs in the elementary. So we can get away with that a little bit easier.
So if we have specific questions and it's geared towards middle school, should we call the tech person at the middle school?
So our technicians are more in the realm of, I guess it depends on the question. If it's a very specific question about a technology that's being utilized or a computer issue that's not working, something at home, they're definitely somebody you can email. If it's more along the lines of this stuff or how to use the software packages that we have, this would be the group right here that you could email me or you could email any of these groups. And I think our information's on there too, correct, Kyle? Who are we? I thought it was on there.
They've got help.
Oh, help you, yeah, there you go.
Top corner.
So you can put that in, and that is a direct line to our help desk. And so if we see that a parent has a question about Canvas, it gets routed to these 3, and they'll be able to help you out the best way possible. That's a great part. I forgot we put that in. This is a really great website that they developed. I had nothing to do with it. It was all of it. Any other questions, comments, concerns? We are here for you 100%. We do shy away a little bit from saying this is the exact tool we want you to use at home, but we will be happy to share any resources, anything that we can help you with. It's a tough job out there, as you saw in some of the earlier slides. 80% of parents think it's way harder today than it was 20 years ago. So we're all in this together. So ring our phones, email us, put in help desk tickets. We're happy to help however we can. So thank you so much for the 4 of you that came out and everybody on the live stream. We appreciate you coming out. And again, we'll post all of this online and make it really easy for you to find.
Hopefully this will all just go away in the next few years.
Yeah, don't see that. If we're gonna follow a pattern here, it's just gonna keep getting worse.